Hey Scotts Hill students, I'm Stephanie, and today I want to talk a little bit about this idea of choosing strength over struggle. Now, this topic sounds weird, kind of in and of itself, this idea that we can choose strength or we can choose struggle. Because I'm sure if most of you thought about your life right now and thought about some of the struggles that you're experiencing right now, none of you would say, oh yeah, I chose that. I wanted to be struggling. I wanted to be in pain. We don't choose to struggle. Struggles just happen. In fact, if we had the choice every morning to either choose struggle or to choose strength, we would always choose strength because struggles are painful and they're uncomfortable and they're hard to deal with. And at the end of the day, really what it is we just hate feeling weak. We hate feeling weak. And even more so than feeling weak and hating that, we hate it even more when we realize that people know that we're weak. We hate it even more when people can look into our lives and see that we're struggling and see that we're in pain. And I think that that's so evident just as we even think about Instagram. More often than not, we're not going to Instagram and seeing all these posts of people broadcasting panic attacks and their depression and processing their family member's death via social media. What we see on social media is people posting these perfect pictures of them and their significant other, them with their friends, or climbing mountains, and I still don't understand how people have enough time to climb mountains in all their free time. I have enough time to do my dishes, but that's off topic. But we see this perfect image of people on Instagram, and that just continues to push this reality for me that we don't want people to see our weakness and our imperfection and our pain. We hate it when people can look into our lives and see that we're weak, and they can look into our lives and see that we're struggling. And if I'm going to be really honest, these past couple of weeks have been a huge struggle for me. There's been a lot of hard stuff that's come up in these past couple of weeks, and it's been hard to deal with, and I am the queen of convincing myself that I'm strong enough to get through it on my own. And at the very least, I'm really good at pulling out the fake smile and trying to convince everybody else that I can handle it, that I don't need anybody else's help, that I'm not in pain, that I'm not struggling. I'm so good at it. And a lot of us, we are, because we live in a world that shuns pain and weakness. No one wants to deal with our pain and weakness. We live in a world and a culture that wants us to be strong and put together and perfect. But the reality is that we're just not, or I won't speak for all of you, but at the very least, I'm just not. I'm not strong enough and I'm not perfect enough. But even in the midst of the struggle, and even the midst even of just the struggle of these past 2 weeks, I've still been able to have joy and have so much hope and just laugh so hard at so many ridiculous things. Because even in the midst of dealing with all of this pain, I know that there's truth in God's word that tells me that I can still have joy in the midst of the struggle. And the passage that I in particular want to focus on is 2 Corinthians 12. And this is a verse that's gotten me through so many difficult parts of my life. And what I love about this is the Apostle Paul is writing this, and the Apostle Paul is when I think about him, when I look at him and just how he wrote most of the New Testament, and he just had this crazy strong faith, I'm like, wow, how could Paul ever struggle with anything? But then we get to 2 Corinthians 12, and there's this vulnerability that comes from him, and I'm just going to go ahead and start in verse 8. Paul says this. He says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, Paul continues to say, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weakness and insult, hardships, persecutions, and calamities, for when I am weak, then I am strong. And I just love that. And like I already said, this has just gotten me so got me through so many hard parts in my life, to just see Paul, this man of just so much faith. And it's really easy to look at Paul and borderline say he's this perfect example. He's not. Just want to clarify, the perfect example is Jesus. But it's so refreshing to see him praying to God and saying, God, I'm struggling. This strong man of God, this strong man of faith is praying to God and saying, God, I am struggling. I am in pain and I can't deal with it. Please take it away from me. Because so often that's me, like just crying out to God constantly, like, God, I can't deal with it. Please take the pain away. Please take the struggle away. I'm not strong enough to deal with it. And to see Paul here saying those same things to God is just incredible. But what's even more incredible about this verse is to see God's response to Paul's prayer. So once again, Paul has prayed. It says now 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this. So Paul has gone to the Lord not once, not twice, multiple times, 3 times, and has prayed that God would take away whatever this struggle is, whatever this pain is. And God doesn't say, oh, yes, of course, Paul. I'll go ahead and I'll do that for you. No, instead what God says is this. He says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. I love that. God is basically saying to Paul, I see that you are struggling. I know that you're struggling and I know that you're in pain. But the reality of the situation is I'm not going to take the pain away from you, at least not now. The reality of the situation, Paul, is that I know that you're not strong enough, but I am. And it brings you to this beautiful place of contentment and peace. And so you can be going through the worst season of your life right now. And when you turn to God and you deeply understand that His grace is sufficient for you, that His power is made perfect in your weakness, it's there where you're going to find joy even in the midst of the pain. So I hope that this was encouraging for all of you. I know it's heavy, but I hope it was encouraging, especially for those of you who are going through a difficult season right now. And I just wanted to remind all of you, whether you're struggling or whether you're not, we love you. We care about you. We're here for you. We're here to talk to you if you feel like you have no one else to talk to. Our doors are always open. Tucker, Josh, myself, we are here for you guys, and we want to love you well. You matter here. We love you guys, and we're so excited to see you next week. We'll see you then.